Welcome to an all-new episode of SJHL Insider on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. A really, you know what, I say it every week that it's a jam-packed episode. Today, I actually, I do always mean it, but this episode especially, there's a lot of news that came out of the SJHL, so we have lots to get into today. But before we do, got to thank all of our great sponsors here at the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. Of course, each and every one of our shows is presented by UPL. Thank you, UPL, for presenting all of our great shows, Insider, Weekly, Playoff Preview Show, you name it. All the shows brought to you by UPL, the presenting sponsor, but big thanks to Borgo, Cantera Seeds, Capital Auto Mall, Great Western Nutrient, RBC, Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, Sask Lotteries, Tourism Saskatchewan, UPL, Sask Energy, SGEU, SGI. Thank you so much for your support, because without your support, these shows are not possible. Clark's here too. Hi, Clark.
Hey, guys. How's everybody doing today? I'm doing well.
Well, the listeners or the viewers can't answer.
Right.
Unless they comment. But
yeah,
doing good.
Doing well. How about you, Jeremy?
Well, today was a 2 coffee day because last night I was in Humboldt to call the Estevan Bruins and the Humboldt Broncos.
Yep.
So little late in getting home. But good news, everybody, if you are traveling on Saskatchewan highways right now, the highway crews are doing an excellent job. Despite the recent snowfall. Highway crews are doing an excellent job. It felt like it was August.
Standing ovation to the highway crews. Well done.
Actually, you're sitting, so that's a sitting ovation. Anyways, I digress.
I'd wreck the camera shot for the people who are watching.
I digress. Enough of our jokes. Let's we do have a lot to get into. I should also mention, not only do we have lots to talk about, we are going to be joined by the unofficial mayor of Melville today. Benny Walchuk. He's joining us on the program. I found out when I went to Melville earlier on this season.
Yep.
And I say this. I said the unofficial mayor of Melville because Benny already, he has keys to the press box. He's got keys to pretty much everything at the bank. So
yeah.
I've dubbed him the unofficial mayor.
I thought you were
going
to say the unofficial busiest man in broadcasting because he just covers so many teams. But
I don't know if you can give him that title.
Yeah.
He's down to 3 teams now, so
right.
I don't know.
What a slacker.
If he was at 4, I'd say maybe.
Yeah,
but
unofficially.
Anyways.
Unofficially.
You want to kick us off?
Yeah, let's do it. We are about to get into, because we do have a busy show today, so we are about to get into the hat trick. Throwing hats. We got to throw hats. Throw some hats.
Jacob, we still need a hat sponsor.
Let's go. Hats.
All right, let's start. It's the week started on Tuesday in the SJHL. Let's recap Tuesday, Wednesday. Let's start with a couple of games on Tuesday. A couple of big games, too, between some of the top teams in the league right now. Flin Flon completing a perfect road month of October for the Flin Flon Bombers, winning 3-2 on the road in Nipawin against the Hawks. Justin Lees with the game winner in the third period in that one. And the Melville Millionaires completing the home-and-home sweep of the Melfort Mustangs, winning 5-3 over the Stangs, back-to-back wins over Melfort. And then, of course, last night, a thrilling game between Estevan and Humboldt. That Estevan snapped a 3-game losing streak with a 3-2 overtime win over the Broncos. And, of course, all of our look-backs are presented by our good friends at Sask Lotteries. 3 big games, I would say, in the first 2 days of the week. The big thing I would like to touch on, I guess let's start with Tuesday, is the Melville Millionaires knocking off the Melfort Mustangs for the second game in a row. They beat Melfort 5-3. They're undefeated at the bank in Melville. They're 7-2 on the season to start the year, and they continue to impress.
Yeah, unbelievable. We've been talking about them. We talked about them a couple episodes ago about being a positive surprise for us both. We both agreed that their results at that point, and they'd only played, I think, 5 games when we talked about them at that point. And since then, all they've done is win. Literally, that's all they've done. Because they were 3-2 when we talked about them, and now they're 7-2, I believe. So they have.
I mean, we've talked about them since they've been 3-2.
No, but the day that we mentioned that they were our positive surprise, or like our surprise season, they were 3-2, and now they've just won. They just kept winning.
You made it sound like we weren't talking about.
Yeah, we never talk about them. Sorry, Melville.
I've been talking about Melville all year.
We do talk about them a lot.
I'm all in on the.
Well, and on top of that, they are earning the talk. Like, they are playing so well, and their roster is one that, if you look at it, you're like, well, I don't think any of these guys are going to necessarily lead the league in scoring.
Correct.
But it doesn't seem to matter. They have such a good team structure. They're scoring by committee. They're getting production from a lot of different guys, veterans, rookies, defensemen. Their goaltenders are putting up numbers. So like, it's just a great combo there. I love what Doug Johnson's done, and shout out to everybody involved.
Well, and just looking at their stats, 34 goals for in 9 games, not the greatest. Mm-hmm. It's under, it's about 3.5 goals per game. That's enough to win in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, but you have to be obviously good defensively, and also have good goaltending, and they have been just that, just 22 goals against in 9 games played, and that's pretty much 2.5. So
nice.
You're doing pretty good when it comes to the defensive side of the puck, but we'll talk about it later on in the show, but now is a real, we talked about how prior to the 2 games against Melfort, we had talked about how this next 5-game stretch for the Melville Millionaires was going to be their first real big test of the season. And, I mean, so far so good. They swept Melfort, and I don't know how many people would have predicted that, because Melfort's a very good hockey club. Mm-hmm. So the fact that they swept the home and home in 2 tight hockey games, winning 4-3, 5-3, and now they're going to play 3 games and 3 nights up north. I can't wait for Friday to see Melville and Flin Flon, but
yes,
we'll talk about that in a bit. Of course, the Flin Flon Bombers continue to roll, 3-2 winners over the Nipawin Hawks. Nipawin playing a solid game at home, but, good teams find ways to win, and that's what the Flin Flon Bombers did on Tuesday. It was 2-2 going in the third, and then Justin Lee's, WHL veteran, played a lot of WHL hockey games, a veteran of junior hockey, gets the game-winning goal, and Flin Flon's 12-0-1 to start the year. Very good start for the Bombers.
Yeah, we talk about Flin Flon a lot, scoring a lot of goals. Mm-hmm. This was one of those games where they weren't able to do that. One of the rare games that they weren't able to get 5 goals in a game. I don't think that's happened more than, is this the only time it's happened? Because we talked about this last week, I think.
What are you talking about? It's happened like 3 times.
They've scored 5 goals.
It's happened like 3 or 4 times that they haven't scored more.
It seems like it never happens.
Sure. No, I think in all seriousness, and I think in 3 games in 13 games, there's been 3 or 4 games where
3 or 4.
Scored last
Very
time.
Rare. So for them, this is one of those games you mentioned. Justin Lee's getting that goal in the third period. Mm-hmm. It was early in the third period, and not only that, but so they were able to hold that lead and shut down Nipawin for basically 3/4 of that last period of play. And so they're like you said, good teams find ways to win games, and they've found now this way where they don't have to massively outscore their opponent. They can also shut teams down as well when they have to. And that's just, it's a hard place to play. We talk about how often do we say the cage in Nipawin is such a hard place to play.
We talk about that about every team in the Sherwood.
Exactly. So for them to go in there and be able to shut them down like that late in the game, it's a kudos to everybody. It's a shout out to everybody.
And I'll give a shout out to our good friend Rob Hart up in Flin Flon. I was listening to the post game show with Rob Hart and his interview with Mike Reagan, and even Mike said after the game, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't a pretty win at all. It wasn't the greatest performance by the Flin Flon Bombers, but like he said, is good teams find ways to win when you aren't playing at your best. And that's what the Flin Flon Bombers did on Tuesday, and now it's shaping up for 2 really exciting games at the Whitney Forum this weekend between Flin Flon and Melville. And Mike Reagan and Doug Johnson have done many battles throughout their coaching careers in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. Should be great. 2 more great battles this weekend. And, of course, we got to talk about the game last night, Estevan and Humboldt. I got to say, out of all the games I've been to so far this year in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, this one was the best.
Yeah.
Back and forth game between. I think if you looked at that if you watched that hockey game, you would have a hard time believing that one of those teams was 3-5-0-2 and one of those teams was 8-0-1. 1-1, I think you would have thought that both of these teams were top teams in the SJHL. And with that being said, a lot of us and a lot of people think that Estevan will get there. It's only 11 games into the season.
Yeah.
However, they looked very good last night, and I know the game ended with a little bit of controversy. We're not going to show the highlights, but you can watch them on the SJHL YouTube channel. There was a disallowed goal in overtime by the Humboldt Broncos. Should it have counted? Should it not have counted? You be the judge. Regardless, the officials, the grade officials in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League ended up saying no goal, and the game continued. Estevan Bruins get a breakaway in overtime, and they gave it to the wrong guy. Anyways, the Bruins snap a 3-game losing streak, back in the win column. And even speaking with Jason Tatarnik after the game, that's a big win for his hockey club.
Oh, definitely. And I think Estevan right now is in a position, like you said, they had a 3 or 4 game losing streak, coming into this, and for them to snap that, especially against Humboldt, such a tough team all throughout their lineup. We talked about that a lot. Such a well-coached team. And, to scrap out an overtime win, Jackson Miller had a great game. Look at the numbers there, 41 shots for Humboldt, and Jackson Miller in net stood strong for Estevan. And that's a tough test for him as the backup goalie, I guess, quote-unquote backup goalie in Estevan. And so for him to have that performance and, Turner McMillan, what a game for him. And, there's some new additions coming into Estevan lately, and so they're all finding their way still. And like you said earlier, I think a lot of us would predict that maybe by Christmas, I think Estevan's record is going to look a whole lot different.
Yeah, and I mean that number 1 line last night for Estevan was superb between Turner McMillan, Keegan Little, and Owen Barrow. They had all 3 goals. Keegan Little set up the Turner McMillan's first goal of the evening, and I mean that line was buzzing all night. They were working doing a really good job with the puck around the outside. They had lots of scoring opportunities. And, I mean, Turner McMillan's an outstanding player. I mean, a veteran of, 150-plus WHL games, around that. And to get him for his 20-year-old season for the Estevan Bruins, that's a big boost. He's going to be a top producer for the Bruins and in the SJHL. And I mean, he proved it last night, but it was a very good hockey game between the Bruins and Broncos last night. And I mean, if that's any indication of how the season series is going to be between those two teams, highly recommend checking out those games at Affinity Place.
Yeah.
And the EPA, which is always a great, fun place to watch a hockey game. Anyways, that's the last 2 days in the SJHL. Let's take a look, moving on to our second point in the hat trick. We've talked about the top scorers. We've talked about the top defensemen. We got to give some love to the tendies. Talk about the top goaltenders in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. So we'll pull up the top 10 graphic of the goaltenders in the league. Of course, these are qualified goaltenders. They've had to played at least a couple of games, obviously early on this season, and a lot of good numbers right now to start the campaign. And Justin Merrick right at the top, obviously returning from the Western Hockey League and the Portland Winterhawks. He has been superb since returning from the Western League. 3-1-0-1, a .971 save percentage, below 1 goals against average. He's won back-to-back SaskTel Goalie of the Week honors. He also has 2 shutouts. But I guess, Clark, when you see these top 10 on the top 10 goalies, and again, it's early. There's a lot of goaltenders too in the SJHL that aren't on this list that are very good. Again, the SJHL always seems to be deep when it comes to goaltenders. But is there anybody on this list that really stands out, or is there somebody you want to focus on?
Well, I think the one name that really stands out right now, just because of what we talked about already in the show today, is William Dyke from Melville. I mean, he's putting up such good numbers, and Melville's playing such good defensive-style, team-based hockey.
Right.
He's fourth in the league right now with a 212 goals against. He's a huge reason that they're 7-2 right now, and he's putting up a great save percentage. And just by him, not by himself, but he's giving the team a great chance. And another name that pops up there, and had probably a lot to do with last night's game, is Jackson Miller down in number 9. He had a lot of saves last night. It probably boosted his numbers a little bit. The goals against obviously went to overtime, so that always helps a little bit with the goals against. But there's a few names on this list, and like you said, the names that aren't on this list too are really interesting. But so far, I'm not surprised that there are as many good numbers on this board as you can see.
Yeah, and I think too, like comparatively to the top defensemen and the top forwards, I think you'll see a lot more movement when it comes to the top goalies, just because, you see a guy like Justin Merrick, that's only 5 games. You see a player like Kenneth Marquardt, that's only 5 games. So when you've only have 5 games and you're basing it on percentages and averages, those numbers are going to fluctuate very quickly, and they can fluctuate very quickly. Like you mentioned, just with Jackson Miller alone.
He's only played 4.
I mean, with last night's performance, his numbers probably decently improved from where they were prior to last night's game, as an example. So I expect there's going to be some goaltenders that are going to move up and down this list. Obviously, you're seeing Kenneth Marquardt and Harman Laser-Hume, both Flin Flon Bombers goaltenders. I mean, Flin Flon's all over the top players list right now, but I mean, both are having great numbers already this season, and I know Mike Reagan will keep both goaltenders going out, but then you see guys like Damon Cunningham as well as Tyson Endall both on there for the Nipawin Hawks. So you're going to see, I think, some goaltenders are going to slide in and out of the top 10, but I think that's where you're going to see a lot of movement. But it's good to see a good variety of goaltenders on this list.
Yeah, and I mean, just to say some of those names that we've been kind of hinting at, it's like Cam Hrdlicka, last year's maybe arguably top goalie. He had 5 shutouts last year. He's 11th right now in goals against.
Sure.
I'm looking at the 2 Kindersley goaltenders, Cody Jamin and Logan Falk. Their numbers are a little inflated right now, but I would fully expect that those would come down, because they had, as young goalies last year, they had really nice seasons. Obviously, again, their numbers, depending on how you look at them, but I expect those guys will come up. Topher Chirico from Larange, he's the second busiest goalie in the league right now.
Yeah.
Once Larange gets figuring it out,
I think that's a bigger problem.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a Topher. I think it's a
exactly.
That's if, like you said, if Larange can kind of turn things around a little bit. I mean, even a guy like Johan Tremblay-Cow. Look at the last 3 games, how well he's played.
Yeah.
But because of the start, his numbers are still nights, it's. Again, it's a month into the season, so
even just Caleb Allen, another one from Yorkton. I fully expect his numbers will keep growing over the year. So there's
in what direction?
Shrinking.
There you go. I was going to say growing.
Well, save percentage goals against.
Okay, fair enough.
Something like that.
All right, well, that's enough for the goaltenders. Let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about the standings right now. I know it's a month into the season, but
never too early.
It's never too early, and it's always fun. It's always fun to talk about the standings. Obviously, Flin Flon is currently at the tippity top of the mountain, 12-0-1 on the season, 25 points. Their only blemish on the season, that 2-1 overtime loss to the Melfort Mustangs on opening weekend. Other than that, they have been perfect the rest of the way. Obviously, Humboldt still has not lost in regulation. They have lost once in a shootout and twice now in overtime, but still no blemishes in regulation, which is really good for them. But then you kind of see, obviously, 3 through 8, you're seeing a lot of teams. I mean, even Humboldt, from 2 to 8, it's still like within 2 to 8's within 9 points. Obviously, it's still early. But then even at the bottom of the standings, like look how tight it is from 8 to 12. How do you, or let's start with this, actually. When you were a month into the season, I think Melville's going to be the easy answer, I think, when it comes to potential surprises. And we're going to talk about Melville with Benny more. So let's, for the sake of this not being an all Melville episode of SJHL Insider, aside from Melville, Clark, who kind of stands out early, a month into the season, that a surprise to you, good or bad, in the SJHL standings?
Yeah, we've talked about this team a little bit. I think it's just Estevan. That's the one team, because I fully expected them to, I mean, could very much still happen, very much could, and there's a good chance of it. But I think just Estevan being in the current position they're at, losing record at 11 games into the season, I had really, really high expectations for that group, and still do. I still do, and I think they'll pull themselves out of this and get up. They'll climb the standings for sure. But that's probably mine. The biggest one that stands out to me is just I expected Estevan to be more around where kind of Weyburn is at this point, in that 4 spot.
Sure.
But other than that, I mean, there's a couple other teams, but I don't want to take all the answers away from you either.
Well, you could just say everything.
I was just going to say, Larange. I think it's just Larange a little bit. I didn't expect them to be where they're at, but they've had a really tough schedule to start the year. They've been busy. So I would say that those are the 2 teams that stand out to me the most.
Yeah, well, and to go back to one of our points we said on SJHL Weekly too, on Monday is, I mean, a good week by any of those clubs, 9 through 12. And all of a sudden you've, leapfrogged a couple of teams and you're already at the, in a playoff spot. Yeah. For me, it's interesting. One thing I really actually wanted to talk about too is when it comes to the standings, I'm just going to pull it up on my laptop. One thing I think is very interesting, aside from Melville, from 4 to 8, I'll say, so Weyburn, Battleford, Nipawin, and Estevan. I think when you look at those teams, I think the big thing that stands out for me, at least with those 4 teams, is just the consistency this year. Mm-hmm. It's been very up and down. I think a lot of people also had high expectations for Nipawin this year. Mm-hmm. And
I was one of them.
They're 6-6-0-1 through 13 games.
Yep.
However, again, tough schedule to start the year. They played a lot. They played Flin Flon a couple of times. They played Battleford a couple of times. But at the end of the day, you could say that every week in the SJHL. You really could. Because of the parity in the league. Yeah. You could say, they had a tough weekend. Well, every weekend's going to be a tough weekend in this league.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's an excuse.
No.
I think what I think a lot of coaches are going to say, and I think what teams should be saying is it's more or less trying to establish consistency within your group. And it comes back to that point I was mentioning earlier. Good teams find a way to win or get points even when they're not playing their best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think one indicator to that, Jer, is a really good one for Weyburn, Battleford's, Nipawin, and Estevan specifically. Let's leave Melville out of this one.
Just because, and we're leaving Melville out of it too, because they've only, compared to those other teams, Melville's only played 9 games.
Only played 9 games.
So maybe next week is the time to maybe include them into that mix, but time will tell.
But that's
why we're leaving them out.
The one thing that I look at with those 4 teams is their goal differential. It's all around 0.
That's
pretty close. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I'm adding to your point. But with Estevan's too, like a -15 at this point in the season. Now that's probably been inflated from a couple of games specifically more than anything. But at the same time, when it just screams inconsistency when you're around the 0, because it means you're probably beating teams a couple nights by nice amounts, and you're probably losing teams by nice amounts as well. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I'm at with those teams. Now we'll get into Battleford's maybe a little bit later in the show to why their goals for might. Their goals differential might change coming forward, but other than that, that's a great point.
Well,
by you.
I think the goal differential for Battleford's already changed with the addition of Justin Merritt coming back.
Very true.
We
Good
saw
point.
his goaltending numbers. He's been outstanding, and I mean, if he plays to his capability, I think even without some additions they made this week, we're not going to talk about it yet. We're saving that for after Benny. I still think they could beat any team in the league with the goaltending of Justin Merrick. That's how good of a goaltender he is. But first month of the season, it's always tough establishing consistency. Yeah. You're figuring out your systems, new players coming in, a lot of different factors, of course. But there are a couple of teams in there I think it's safe to say are like early on this season have struggled with it. Mm-hmm. And as a result, you're kind of seeing like Battleford 6-5-0-1, essentially 500.
Yep.
Nipawin 6-6-0-1, 500.
Yeah.
Estevan's 4-5-0-2. It's interesting to look at because obviously you see the top 3 in the standings. Guys, can we pull up the standings once again? Flin Flon, Humboldt, and Melfort. Obviously, early on this season. Melfort, for example, they've won 9 out of 12 games. Humboldt's won 8 out of 11 and 12 out of 13. But then aside from that, and again, take Melville out of it, I think the rest of, the SJHL, those teams are looking to establish consistency.
Yeah.
And that's where there's been just it's been a little bit of a roller coaster ride for a lot of teams early on this season. But again, that's bound to happen. And I think it'll be the teams that establish the consistency sooner rather than later. Those are going to be the teams that are going to start to vault up the standings. And you're going to see the Nipawins, the Estevans, maybe Battlefords, Weyburn, even the teams that currently aren't in playoff spots can vault up the standings and get into a better position.
Yeah, and those teams too, again, we focus on those 4 that we've been kind of touching on here. They've been busy. They've been making additions. Not they've added, a few players here and there. And on top of that, it's about finding the group chemistry as well, right? So that's, I think, where some of those teams, that inconsistency might be taking place, is they're just trying to find some of that group chemistry as a team as they add these pieces here and there. And that's tough. You talked about, it's early in the season, and it's tough when you're when you start the season trying to find that chemistry, and then you make some additions, you make some changes, you add guys here and there, and it changes that chemistry, and you have to find it on the fly as well.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of adds to that, I think, for all those teams that are in that kind of middle spot. It kind of adds to that as well.
Yeah, it'll make for an interesting, obviously, push for the obviously, we're only a month into this season. It's the end of October.
Yeah.
But I think because of parity and nobody being out of it early on this season, you have to talk about that type of stuff early on this season because you don't know where teams will be come, next month.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And, it's exciting because there are some additions. Again, we'll talk about it later, but some of these teams have been making some really nice moves, and I'm really curious to see how all those new players fit in and what kind of impact they can have.
Yeah, and we'll talk about all those moves following our interview with the play-by-play voice of the Melville Millionaires, Yorkton Terriers, Swan Valley Stampeders, and as I dubbed him earlier, as he's logged into the call, so we'll go to the video chat line where we're joined by the unofficial mayor of Melville, Benny Walchuk. Benny, when's the campaign start? Do you need a campaign manager? What's going on?
A year from now is the election, so maybe we'll start right now.
Do you want to break that news on SJHL Insider that you will be running for Melville Town Council?
No, not quite yet.
Okay. Well, when you're ready, this is the place to break the news, okay?
Sounds good.
All right. Benny, thanks so much for doing this. We really appreciate it. You're Clark dubbed you the busiest broadcaster in Saskatchewan. How do you feel about that title?
Well, first off, Clark, last time I was on this show, you promised me some Christmas gifts that I haven't received yet. So I was really, really tempted not to arrive for the show. So I'm expecting maybe another gift here this year, maybe an SJHL swag pack or something like that from the league office. So still upset right now, but Leafs are off to a little bit of a tough start, so that makes me happy.
All right, Benny, let's talk some hockey. Let's start with the Melville Millionaires, your hometown. And I mean, they are off to such a good start, 7-2 on the year. They've only lost at Affinity Place this year, actually down in Estevan. They've been so good throughout the start of the season. Doug Johnson coming in. And there's a lot of excitement in Melville. Just tell us a little bit about the Millionaires the first month of the season and what you've seen from them.
Yeah, it's been a kind of a sense of breath of fresh air for the organization. I know after a decent preseason, good home-and-home series against Estevan, they thought they could win that opening game in Estevan on the road, but it just came up a little bit short on that delayed power play goal for the Bruins. But yeah, just playing, like you said, Doug Johnson hockey, playing hard to play against, in your face, structurally well, and getting some pleasant surprises. I know Doug says, what's the big part of the success? And Doug's going to say goaltending, because goaltending has been very, very good. They're getting that first stop. They're getting that stop when they need to. And just from both guys, William Dyke's been outstanding. And then Ethan Rao went into Melford and beat the Melford Mustangs. So it's all about just playing really good hockey, getting scoring. Like you said, Jaden Iogan's been a pleasant surprise with 5 goals in the season. Ewan Morrison coming over from the SIJHL in a trade. He's been very good as well. So it's been great. I know the first home-and-home series with Yorkton, they had almost 1,200 people in the building. 50-50 was almost $5,000. And you see the town kind of breathe the fresh of air. You see a little bit of sense of urgency with the Millionaire fans that are coming out. There's more Millionaire fans coming out each and every night. I think they're 3rd or 4th in attendance so far early on here in the SJHL season. So it's getting back to the old days that we're used to for Millionaires hockey, where they've had success. They're fun hockey, and hopefully this continues. I know they have a big weekend here coming up, but it's been great to have the Millionaires back to being successful, because it's not only good for this community, which is a hardworking community, but also good for the SJHL.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I kind of want to rewind a little bit, because you were calling the game on Tuesday against the Melford Mustangs, and I know we had talked about it on SJHL Weekly a little bit. Early on this season for the Millionaires, it was, play a game and then have a couple of days off. It's been a slow start to the year compared to some of these other teams, but playing a home-and-home against the Melford Mustangs, really their first big test of the season, and they pass it with flying colors, sweeping the home-and-home. What'd you see on Tuesday against a very good Melford Mustangs team?
Yeah, like you mentioned, the break in between games, I think that's been good, because, Doug Johnson likes to develop a system, and a lot of these guys haven't played in that type of system. So it's probably good for them to have some practice time. They practice a lot. They have 2-hour practices in the afternoon. So it's a grind, and a lot of the boys admit it's been a grind, but they finding results in games, and especially on Tuesday, I think they just got that first stop like I talked about, and they're smothering. I know Melford's a very good hockey team. They're very good on the transition. They got very good offense from the back end, and I think they just were able to kind of just skate, and then just kind of didn't give the Melford Mustangs any room. In the second period in particular, I think they outshot the Mustangs 24-6, and that was probably the best period I've seen the Millionaires play in probably 3 or 4 years. They get 3 goals from that period as well. So I think just playing on top of your face, playing hard to play against, but just playing that smothering hockey that we've so come to used to from Doug Johnson's teams. And also the penalty kill has been very good. Melford has a very strong power play. They came in top ranked in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League coming into that game. And Millionaires, I've only given up 2 power play goals in 31 chances, I think, at home ice. I think they're over 96% at home on the PK. So special teams have been a big factor of that, and just playing very good hockey away from the puck. And I talked to Jordy Woodrick, the assistant coach, after their game on Tuesday, and he said that when you're playing good hockey defensively in your own zone, and then those offensive chances are going to happen. And right now for the Millionaires, they're taking advantage of those offensive chances and they're putting in the back of the net. So if they can continue that, I know it's going to be a tough task, as we said, playing defensive hockey against a very, very good Flin Flon team here this weekend, and then the Laurens wrap things up on Sunday. So yeah, it's been great, and just seeing if they can play like that and get this timely scoring from some maybe guys that people haven't heard about as much around the league. I think they could be a good success here, and I think it can be sustainable for this Millionaire team.
Well, and you teased it obviously this coming weekend, 3-3, Flin Flon, Laurens. No matter where Flin Flon and Laurens are in the standings, that's just a difficult trip for any team to complete. Now, this will be the first time the Millionaires go up north this year, and of course, I mean, for somebody who's been in the SJHL for as many years as you have, and as many years as I have, and anybody watching, they know those rinks up north are a little bit more challenging. They're a little tighter, a little less space and time. Do you think this Millionaires team, with the style that they play, will be okay in those smaller rinks up north?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an adjustment. I remember my first time going up there is a pretty good atmosphere, especially in Flin Flon, and then you got all the surroundings in Laurens that you have to deal with. So I think it's going to be a little eye-opening for some of those young guys going up there. They're not sure what to expect. I know you can tell them as much as you can about the Flin Flon, about the Whitney Forum, just the history behind it, the fans, just the way they play. You can also tell them as much as about Laurens being a short roof, not a lot of space to skate around. But I think having Doug Johnson's definitely going to be a big plus for that. Doug's played in those barns before. He knows what to expect. I know it's much different teams, and he's probably played back down the stretch in the past, but I think they're going to be a prepared team. I think they just got to keep things simple, get pucks in, get pucks out, take advantage of their scoring opportunities that they can. Like I said, first 2 games is going to be a Flin Flon. I know I've been up there this trip a few times with both Yorkton and Melville. To get off to a good start is definitely crucial. You don't want to give anybody like Flin Flon. I think at one time or a couple times I've been up there, Flin Flon's got up to like 4-0 leads in the first 10 minutes. I'm like, oh boy. But so I think you have to avoid that. And if you can pot the first couple, get to an early lead, put the Flin Flon Bombers on their heel, who knows what can happen, because they haven't faced as much adversity here this season than they have. They've only 1 loss in overtime, none in regulation out of 13 games. So I think if you can get the Bombers to face a little bit of adversity, get some good goaltending, which is going to be definitely crucial here, especially in the opening 2 games, I think success can come out with it. But it's definitely going to be a given atmosphere, and it's going to be a very, very good test to see how good this Melville Millionaire team actually is.
No doubt about it. All right, let's talk about the other team you cover, where it's been a little bit of a different story for the Yorkton Terriers to start this season. They got off to a good start to the year, but now they've lost 5 in a row. What have you seen from this Terriers club through 11 games?
Yeah, it came in. You knew the talent they would have up front offensively with all the returning guys, Dylan Ruptash, Clay Sleva, Brett Butts. You know that. You knew their D would be pretty decent, and they had a lot of returnees back, maybe guys that didn't play the top 4 roles that they have last couple of years. And then you knew goaltending coming in. You had Caleb Allen, who has had an up and down opening year. He's been very, very good, and then he has times that he wants to fix up. And you had Blake Sittler came in, who was a very good goaltender for the Yorkton Maulers AAA last year. So you knew they had success. I think it's about bonding right now. I know they played a lot of home games here. I think 10 of the first 13 are at home. They're going to head back on the road here for a few weeks because the Harvest Showdown always shuts down the rink for 3 weeks. So they'll be heading on the road here the next few weeks. And I talked to Emery Olawson on our weekly coaches show on Monday, and he said these either can be really good road trips or really bad road trips. So it's going to start here against Malfort on Friday. Then they go to play them in Kamsack. It's going to be a home game, but it's going to be a neutral semi in Kamsack. And then next week they go to Battleford Kindersley for 3 games and 3-night road trip. So it's either going to be good for the guys to bond and maybe gel a little bit more, develop some chemistry, or they're going to be away from home and stick with their habits they've had the last a couple of weeks, and it could snowball even more. So I think it's just about being more disciplined. I think they're getting the penalty box a little bit too much. I think they're just making mistakes and trying to do too much on the power play, which just hasn't had much success so far this year. So I think just kind of limit the mistakes and develop a little bit more discipline. I think they can have more success. And like we said about the Millionaires, that they can play more better defensively, I think the scoring opportunities are going to come for them more so. And I think some of these top guys are definitely going to break out. And it's been a little bit of a slow start for a few of them, but I think with this road trip, especially going to Battleford next weekend, is going to be might be a make or break here for the Yorkton Terriers.
Well, I think a lot of people thought, looking at the returning players for the Yorkton Terriers and the talent that they have, you mentioned Clay Sleva, Dylan Ruttash, Tyson Perkins, Caleb Allen in between the pipes. Like, they have the pieces, but obviously with Emery coming in very close to the start of training camp and implementing your systems and everything like that. Is that part of it for, potentially this team getting off to a bit of a slow start just because of how late Emery came in because of the coaching change?
Yeah, it definitely can be. It's nice to have Zach and Scotty there as assistant coaches
Right.
to kind of help the transition, but it's 2 weeks. Emery tried to bring in a few guys from his KI team. Some guys he tried to recruit late, just 2 weeks before camp. And I think it's still a developing system. I know this is not really Emery's team, maybe you can say, the guys you want to recruit. He's going to have to go what he has in his organization right now, then develop the systems that way. But I think it's also been a tough break injury-wise. I know Tate Schofer is a guy that got back from Moose Jaw, and I'm not sure how long Tate's going to be out. He got injured very early on in Yorkton, and then now he's going to have surgery, I believe. Nothing confirmed yet, but he most likely might have to have surgery, so I'm not sure the timetable when Tate's going to be back. So that's a big, big loss. A 19-year-old veteran of over 100 games in the Western Hockey League, brought good speed, and then they've had some suspensions, untimely suspensions as well. So they haven't had quite their full roster than probably Emery would have liked. So hopefully they can get back a little bit healthier here in the next month or so leading up to the Christmas break, and hopefully they can maybe get some continuity, especially with some lines up front. And I think they need to get better goaltending as well and play better defensively. They can do that. I think things will happen for them more successfully.
Well, Benny, you pay attention to the entire league, not just obviously the Millionaires and the Terriers. What stood out for you a month into this season?
I knew you were going to ask me this, Jeremy, so I thought about it a little bit today.
Perfect.
Of course, Flin Flon, I guess not. I mean, we not surprised Flin Flon got off to a good start, but maybe just how dominating they've been.
Right.
Maybe L'Orange. I thought L'Orange might have been a little bit more successful, and they've got off to a slow start. Still long ways to go, and I'm sure Killer is going to turn things around there in L'Orange, so that might be a surprise for me as well. Of course, we talked about Melville. I knew Melville would be much more improved under Doug Johnson. I didn't think they would get off to this good of a start here so far this season. Weyburn's got off. I know they've been developed in the last couple of years. They've got off to a very, very good start, and you got to give hats off to Cody, what he's done there in Weyburn. Estevan, maybe a little bit of a slow start. I thought they would be much better here early on this season. Nipawin's had a decent start. Battleford, maybe a little bit of slower start, but they had a lot of turnover. I think they lost over 150 goals or something from last year. They did get Keon Bell back, which is going to be a big add for their team going forward. So I think just teams that I thought would have better success aren't. And then some teams like the Melville Millionaires are maybe playing more better than I had never thought they would, especially here early on this season. So it's still early on this season. Still lots of goals. A lot of good teams still have to make their long road trips yet. So you got the snow hitting some players to Saskatchewan and in northern Manitoba that maybe some guys aren't used to, being from BC or being from south of the border. So still lots of stuff to figure out here as the season goes on. But it's been great. I think the parity has been outstanding. I know I had a question asked to me earlier this week, what's been better in the MJHL and SJHL so far? And I think the SJHL has been much better because there's been much more parity, much more closer hockey games, lots of goals, which is great for the fans as well. Maybe not for the coaching staff there's coaching staffs across the league that are losing hair and getting gray hairs, but I think the parity has been outstanding, and that's just going to bode well for the rest of the season here.
Yeah, and I guess finally, just even the parity in the Viterra division. I'm just looking at the standings right now, and there's only separated by 7 points. And I kind of expect that this Viterra division with Weyburn, Melville, Estevan, and even Yorkton, once they get, it's like you said, some injuries, get a bit healthier, get their systems figured out, I expect this division to be very tight. What do you see?
Yeah, I expected very much the same thing. A lot of teams that want to take that next step. Yorkton wants to take the next step. Weyburn especially wants to take the next step, and Melville wants to take the next step and try to catch up to the Estevan, which has been the cream of the crop of this division for the last number of years. So I think that's going to continue, and it's nice to have the rivalry games. I know we had the rivalry games with Yorkton Melville earlier this month, and they were typical Melville Yorkton games. I know it's always a big rivalry, but these ones just felt more like the old Yorkton Melville rivalries. Right. A lot of fans in attendance, good atmosphere, and it was just great to see. So hopefully that continues going forward. But yeah, it's going to be a dogfight. I know I talking to Doug and Emery before the season. They knew these divisional games are going to be very important, even though they're in late September, early October. So it's been great to see. I'm glad I'm kind of got the half the division covered here in the Viterra division to see how things go here down the stretch. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, Benny. And, we always look forward to you coming on the show, and I'll make sure Clark sends you those gifts. Benny, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. We'll have you on again here soon. Yeah, for sure. And I like those gifts maybe hand delivered this time. Not saying I'm going to send them in the mail. So hopefully see you guys and the SJHL brass down here to hand deliver those gifts and maybe visit us here in East Central Saskatchewan. Hey, you'll see me. I don't know about Clark. That's the issue. I don't know about him. He lets me handle the interviews for a reason. He doesn't want to get out of that comfy chair. So we'll see. Well, I think with Clark working so hard with his with working out, he might have a spot with the Blue Jays here coming up here. So we'll have to see how Clark's offseason goes. We might see him in a Blue Jays uniform coming up. Well, they need all the help they can get. Benny, thanks so much. We really appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon. No, thanks a lot. Once again, great job you guys do at the SJHL offices to promote the league and continued success here down the stretch. Yeah, Benny, keep busy. Enjoy your hockey. I'll try. Talk to you soon. All right, that is the play-by-play voice, both the Melville Millionaires, Yorkton Terriers, Swan Valley Stampeders, Benny Walchuk, unofficial mayor of Melville, 2024, Benny Walchuk. It's happening. Is that, we don't know if he might have been joking, but I think he's got my vote. I was just about to be really personally hurt by what you guys were saying about me, and then he made a nice compliment at the end there saying I'm going to play for the Blue Jays. So I kind of don't feel so bad now. So now I do want to go down there. Well, I want to get out of this chair and get down there. So when you say down there, over there. It's not. It's not down. It's over. Yeah. And also, you make it sound like it's so far away. It's not. We should go. Melville's an hour and 20 minutes away, 15 minutes away. Mm-hmm. Stop. No, you're right. Right? Yeah. It's all excuses at this point. I've been there this year. Yeah. Yeah. Have you? No, I haven't. Exactly. And all right. We've already determined the best rink food is in Melville. So there's zero excuses for me. What am I doing? It's brutal. You tell me. I'm brutal. You said it, not me. Okay. Before we take a look at the weekend in the SJHL, we got a lot of things. Holy cow! Got a lot of news and notes. Where's Nooks? We're gonna have Noogsy come down on a chair from the ceiling. He's actually gonna come down from the rafters like Sting used to. He's gonna land right here. Yeah. So I got a bunch. If I miss anything, because there was so much, I'll see what I can do. Feel free to come in and chime in, but. We'll just quickly. We're already going a little long today, so we'll just some quick points on these. But I think the big one, Benny mentioned it. Kian Bell, the reigning, defending SJHL MVP of the year, Player of the Year, is back with the Battleford's North Stars after a stint in the QMJHL and with the Edmonton Oil Kings of the Western Hockey League. He is back with the team, and he is going to return to the lineup tonight for the Battleford's North Stars as they begin 3-3 in southeastern Saskatchewan. When you look at, Benny mentioned how much goals they lost in the offseason. I think the Stars have done a solid job through 12 games, 41 goals for. A more balanced, I think, attack compared to last year, where they had, obviously, their top two lines were just so elite. And they were a deep team last year, but you saw a lot of the offense coming from the top six. But getting a guy like Kian Bell back, is going to be a huge addition for Battlefords. And now you have to think, you have Justin Merrick in net, you have Kean Bell up front. I think you have to start to consider, even though they're 6-5-0-1 to start this year, that the Battlefords North Stars are now going to be in that upper echelon of teams in the SJHL.
You have to. And, I've been thinking about this a little bit too. Like, we saw Kean Bell miss a few games at the beginning of last year as well. And then he came in and took the league by storm,
right.
And never stopped. Yep. Throughout the entire
Correct.
season. So I already have caught myself looking at the goal leaders in the SJHL. Now, Jacob Vockler and Ryan Duguay have 12 and 11. That's a big head start. That's a big head start. And plus, they're probably not going to slow down themselves because they're both also very good this season. And there's some other guys right below them. Justin Lees, Matthew Van Blaircom, Alexi Silvestri, 8, 9, 9 goals, But I've already caught myself thinking, how many weeks until we see Kean Bell get into that top 5 or 6 or 7 in goal scoring? Like,
do you know what that sounds like? That sounds like a buy it or sell it question.
Oh, how many weeks? That's a great. Tune in Monday for SJHL
We're
Weekly.
Not doing buy it or sell on Monday, but I'll save that one for next time.
Yeah.
But yeah, big addition for the Battlefords North Stars. He is officially back in the lineup for the North Stars tonight, and he's going to play on a line with Ben Portner and Kobe Anderson, who have both been very good, actually, for Battlefords to start the year. So that's the first big news. Of course, Wednesday, Matthew Van Blaircom was announced as a player to watch from the NHL Central Scouting List, the lone SJHL player. Super exciting. Obviously, you mentioned it just now, Clark. He's had a great start to the year. He scored his 9th goal of the season last night for the Humboldt Broncos, and even Scott Barney said on our show Monday just how excellent he has been so far this season. The sky's the limit for Matthew Van Blaircom. So just give a big shout out to Matthew Van Blaircom being named to the NHL Central Scouting watch list. Also, the Nipawin Hawks have been busy too with some roster additions. They have added 2 20-year-old forwards. Alex Bernauer, who had 24 goals, 33 assists last year with OCN. So that's a big addition up front. And then also this one just this was today, I think.
Yeah,
they announced 20-year-old Artem.
Oh, hold on. I think I might have figured this out. Let me just get the thing so I can look at his name.
Okay, I was going to try. But
No, you try.
Well, you cut me off.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, you apologize. So
Sorry.
Artem Hrab.
I'm going to guess the H is silent. So it's more of a Rab.
Rabovitsky?
Rabovetsky? Rabovetsky.
You know what? You know who's going to be on the case? Clark Stork.
Clark Stork.
He's on the case to
Detective
figure it
Stork.
out.
Yeah.
So regardless.
Rabovetsky is what I would say. Or ski? Would you almost pronounce the Y a little bit?
Stop. You're getting too much into it.
I want to make sure we get it right.
Yeah, well, we don't know.
Yep. Artem.
There you go.
Yeah.
So 2 20-year-old forwards added up front for the Nipawin Hawks as they, I think we had talked about Nipawin's forward group at the beginning of the season. We already liked their forward group as it is, but they're getting deeper and deeper up front, which is really exciting for Tad Kozin and company. Obviously, there's, you have the Melfort Mustangs, you have the Flin Flon Bombers, and now you throw in the Nipawin Hawks, and there's a lot of weapons in that division.
Yeah, and I mean, McGuire Ratzlaff, by the way, has been hot lately. He's been putting up some points. He's already an early candidate for some Forward or Player of the Week awards, by the way. I think he's at the top of the league right now this week, specifically for points. But he's been picking it up after a bit of a slow start for him.
There's been 3 games.
I know.
So why would you tease that?
It was a joke.
Well, it wasn't funny. I wasn't laughing.
2 goals, 1 assist. He's doing well. And just going back in the last couple weeks, he's been putting up some points. But yeah, we talked about it early in the year, how Nipawin was going to be an offensively strong team. And I think you add these 2 players, you're building onto a strength. And sometimes in junior hockey, you have to kind of just buy into who you are as a team. If you know what your identity is going to be, make your strength even stronger. And that'll make, overall, you'll just be better as a team. Instead of trying to fill holes sometimes in what you see as a deficiency, if you can just make your strength even stronger, that's also a way to, really push yourself up the standings as well. So I look at Nipawin making these 2 moves, and I see, just being more dangerous, like you said, as a team, as a unit, as a forward group. And I'm looking forward to seeing some of the results that come from this.
Would love to know how McGuire Ratzlaff has 2 goals and an assist when they lost 3-2.
I could have swore I saw 2. What was I?
And they lost 3-2, and he had 1 assist.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
McGuire Ratzlaff.
I must have had the wrong thing on.
You know what?
I think I included. Did they play on Sunday?
You're playing great, but
Did they play on Sunday? Because I think I might have included Sunday in the thing that I was looking at.
I don't know what you do, to be honest with you.
You know what? Neither do I.
Well,
so here we are. Here we are.
Wow, you've got me all
Yeah, I
rattled.
included Sunday, so that's why.
Well, that's a mistake.
Sorry, guys.
You've got me all rattled now. Where are we? Oh, yes. Let's, if you haven't been on SJHL.ca lately, a couple of things. First and foremost, if you go to SJHL.ca, whether it be on your lovely laptop or on your mobile device, you may see some changes to the website. Just a little tweaks, nothing too crazy, but it does look a lot cleaner. Be sure to go to SJHL.ca, check out some of these new fun changes because it does make the website look a lot sharper. You'll notice the difference. Trust me, I just want to plug that because I woke up this morning and I went on the website to update the website because that's, my job.
Yeah.
And I was pleasantly surprised. I'm like, wow, this is great.
Yeah.
What a treat. It's like Christmas. So, go to SJHL.ca and check that out. Also, when you're there, be sure to go and check out Noogsy's latest edition of Saskatchewan's Finest, where he features Jacob Cassette of the Larange Ice Wolves, another good article by Noogsy, who is very good at typing words into an
very
article.
good.
He is very good at that.
Yeah.
So check out Saskatchewan's Finest on SJHL.ca. He did not give a teaser of... Oh, no, he did. He teased the Wednesday, obviously this Wednesday ones. I don't know what he's doing next week, so we'll find out.
It's a mystery box.
I just forgot to ask him, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I think that's everything for news and notes that I wanted to touch on when it comes to news. The other thing we are starting this year is, guys, can we come to a one shot here on old Jer here? We are doing, through our good friends at Tourism Saskatchewan, once a month, our Tourism Saskatchewan weekend road trip. So you're probably asking, well, what's on the weekend road trip?
Jeremy, what's on the weekend road trip?
Well, I'll tell you right now. So essentially, we're going to, not only are we going to promote the games that are going to be happening in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, we're going to be talking about some events that are happening, not even hockey related, but some might be hockey related. They might tie into the teams as well. It really depends what I find. Here's the thing. Saskatchewan's a big province. I'm not going to list off every single event that's going to be taking place in Saskatchewan. That'd be a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a whole different show.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, stay tuned next week.
No, we're not doing that. Okay, so essentially, the Tourism Saskatchewan weekend road trip just highlights some upcoming events in the province that you can go attend. So, the first and foremost, the thing I wanted to bring up, not only tonight is a big game between the Battleford North Stars and the Weyburn Red Wings at Crescent Point Place, it's also Kids Sports Sask Energy Game Night.
There we go.
Lots of fun games they got planned. Maybe Gus the Gasosaurus will be there. We don't know.
I'd be disappointed if he wasn't.
I don't think he's made an appearance yet this year.
Oh, no.
I don't know. Well, hopefully he hasn't gone extinct. We don't know because that's what happens with dinosaurs.
Well, I wasn't going there.
We don't know.
Injured reserve list or something.
Sure. Anyways, but not only is it tonight, it's tomorrow night, Friday in Estevan, the Kids Sport Sask Energy Game Night. So if you are in Southeast Saskatchewan, get out to the rink because those Kids Sport Sask Energy Game Nights are a lot of fun. Hey, you know what's coming up next week?
Are you about to tell me?
I don't know. Look at a calendar, Clark.
Halloween.
There you go.
Yeah. So Tuesday, actually, to be specific.
There you go.
Yeah.
Anywho, so a lot of people, because Halloween is on a Tuesday, some people might be having some Halloween parties this weekend. Mm-hmm. Hey, you know who's got a Halloween party? The Larange Ice Wolves. They're hosting their Halloween Howler Dance.
Nice.
Saturday night, post Ice Wolves Hounds. You know who's going to be there? Noogsy.
Yes. Is he gonna tear up the dance floor?
No, he's gonna be dressed up.
Oh, well, you could still tear up.
He's gonna be dressed up as a Nooga bar.
Oh yeah.
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 I'm excited.
Caramel.
Posting pictures, I would hope.
No.
Okay.
Probably not. But speaking of Halloween, I do also want to give a shout out to a couple of other teams. So the Kindersley Clippers actually play on Halloween next week on Tuesday against, I do believe, the Nipawin Hawks. But what I love that Kindersley is doing for this is they're doing trick-or-treating at the West Central Event Center.
Let's go.
That's such a good idea. That actually, like,
So
genuinely.
do you know how they're doing it?
Oh, I don't know.
'Cause I remember.
I don't know.
I think one year we were in Estevan. We did a Halloween night where there was some I think some companies from around town set up tables or booths or something like that.
Do you know what? Regardless, it's a good way for the community
great
to
time.
come together. Businesses can come to the West Central Event Center, hand out candy to all the kids, and you know what? It's a safe environment
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And you can watch a great hockey game.
And if you're trick-or-treating in a hockey rink, you don't need a jacket necessarily. So you can actually wear your costume as it's supposed to be worn.
I've always said that's the one thing I didn't.
That's the worst part.
I didn't grow up in Saskatchewan. Growing up,
I did.
I did I was in Lower Mainland, BC. So I always thought that would be kind of heartbreaking to wear your coat over your costume.
It is.
Because you can't see it.
Or the other way around, because your costume gets stretched out or whatever. That's the other.
I know.
So that's why
that's ridiculous.
That's why for like 6 years in a row, guess what I went as?
Wait, don't. You went as the Michelin Man.
No, well, that would have been a good one.
That would have kept you warm.
That would have been a good one. No, but I was like a dead hockey player or an injured hockey player with blood on your face, because you could just wear your hockey jersey over your jacket.
Oh my!
6 years, like 5-6 years in a row. It's the Canada way. It's Canadian way, man. Because otherwise, what are you going to do? You're going to wear, like you said, your jacket over top. What's the point of wearing a costume?
Well, that's a fair point.
I threw my current year's hockey jersey
I'd also
on.
like to just throw out the other thing I had written down for this, for the Tourism Saskatchewan weekend road trip, which we're going to have to cut down and post this on social media. So because we just ranted, I don't know if we're going to be able to post on social media.
Sorry, guys.
So thanks, Clark.
Yeah.
The Melfort Mustangs are actually, if you're in the Melfort area, you can actually go trick-or-treating with the Melfort Mustangs around the communities. Yeah, I think I saw on social media they're going to have like 4 different spots around Melfort. You can meet up with some Mustangs, and they'll go trick-or-treating with you. Great idea. So,
again, built-in costumes, hockey jerseys.
Sure. So a lot of the SJHL teams are going to be doing some sort of Halloween events. Go to all 12 of the teams' websites, social medias, check all that out. But there's going to be a lot of Halloween events around the communities in the SJHL. So if you want to stay up to date with those, you can. But that's essentially your Tourism Saskatchewan weekend road trip. I know I dipped past the weekend a little bit, but it's the Halloween season, and it really is, when you think about it, kind of the holiday season. A little bit, celebrations, and obviously, Christmas is 2 months away. But anyways, But there's a lot to get to. But that is the first edition of the Tourism Saskatchewan Weekend Road Trip. Next month, we'll try and maybe we'll put together a little graphic and put it all together and try and spread out the love across the province. But here's the thing: this time of the year, there's so much going on.
Oh yeah.
There is so much going on when it comes to events and communities all around the province. So it's going to make it a little tricky, but it's a great little partnership with Tourism Saskatchewan. Just to tell you about some other things going on in the province. Okay, 12 games this weekend in the SJHL. Let's get right into it. Let's talk about them, Clark.
Yep.
5 games Friday. Wow. I don't know the days of the week. 5 games Friday. Let's start with the big one. There's Melville, Flin Flon. Going to be a doozy at the Whitney Forum, of course, like we mentioned, 2 games up there. Battleford's Estevan should be a great contest. Of course, Estevan coming off that 3-2 win over the Humboldt Broncos in overtime Wednesday night. The Notre Dame Hounds and will visit the L'Orange Ice Wolves for a pair. The Yorkton Terriers play the Melfort Mustangs in a home-and-home, and then Humboldt and Kindersley also play a home-and-home, and worth, of course, mentioning tonight. The Balfour's North Stars begin a 3-game and 3-night road trip in Weyburn. There just isn't a graphic for that because there's only 1 game tonight. Okay, Saturday. A lot of rematches. Some venue changes, though, Clark.
Sure.
Melville, Flin Flon, once again. They run it back, as the kids would say. Melfort and Yorkton, but it's not going to be in Yorkton. So any Terriers fans, don't show up to the Westland Arena on Saturday because there will not be a hockey game at 7 o'clock. It is going to be in Kamsack, which is another great neutral site game. I mean, I was at the Carlisle game last week for a neutral site game. It just seems like these small communities really embrace the SJHL whenever they come there. It's always a great environment. If you're in the Kamsack area, check out the Mustangs and the Terriers. Battlefords and Weyburn will meet again, second time in 3 days. And then the second half of a home-and-home between Kindersley and Humboldt. And then Notre Dame and L'Orange battle once again. And then finally, 2 more games on Sunday. Second week in a row, we've had a couple Sunday games. Notre Dame will wrap up 3-3 in Nipawin against a fresh Nipawin Hawks team who haven't played since Tuesday. And then a very unique situation actually taking place in La Ronge on Sunday. Melville will take on the La Ronge Ice Wolves, and both teams are playing their third game in 3 nights. Of course, Melville playing 2 games in Flin Flon, and then La Ronge playing. You don't see it often. I think La Ronge did it once last year too. They're playing 3 games in 3 nights, but all at home. So yes, it's 3 games in 3 nights, but you get to sleep in your own bed, so it's not as bad, I guess.
Not
but
as many
regardless,
buses.
it's still a lot of hockey in a short period of time. What is your game of the weekend?
Yeah. So I'm going to go a little bit maybe off what you would think, you think of really, strong records for a game of the weekend.
Well, fun fact. It's your game of the weekend.
It's my game of the week, so I'm picking it.
It's up to you. It's not up to anybody else.
I'm going to say hold on. Is it Friday?
Well,
Friday night.
There's 5 games.
I'll go Friday night, but it kind of counts as Saturday as well. Notre Dame at La Ronge. I'm looking at that series quite heavily because Notre Dame's coming off 3 straight wins. La Ronge is coming off a few days off.
I'll give you that.
And they also are 1-0-0-1 in their last 2. I don't know if that counts as a streak, but they haven't lost.
Who? La Ronge?
So I'm looking at
you
those.
Just say they got 3 out of 4 points.
Yeah, 3 out of 4 points. That's better. Thank you, Jeromy. But these 2 teams, we talked about how a good week can go a long way at this point in the season.
Yeah.
Those 2 teams scream a good week could go a long way at this point of the season.
That's a very good point.
So actually, I'm going to say Notre Dame and La Ronge, they're right now neck and neck in their spots in the standings. So I'm going to say if one of those teams can win both games, I especially think Notre Dame, with how they're surging, they could really, kind of take a little bit of a leap here in the standings at this point in the year. So I'm going to say that's the one I'm looking at the most.
That's a good one.
Thank you.
That actually is a really good one because, like you said, especially, right now they're both 11th and 12th in the SJHL standings. Right. La Ronge 3-8-1-1 on the year. Notre Dame 3-9. Of course, they've won 3 straight games. La Ronge, beginning a lengthy homestand. They got 3 out of 4 points to start the homestand, which is obviously a good task. But like you said, if one of those teams sweeps those 2 games, all of a sudden you get 4 points, and depending on how other teams have done, you might be in a playoff spot going into the start of next week. And that doesn't even include the Sunday game that you.
They both play on Sunday as well, not against each other.
They both play on Sunday as well. Of course, Notre Dame will be in Nipawin for a 3:00 start at the Centennial Arena. Then Melville at La Ronge for the 3rd game in 3 nights. You know what? Okay, then I'll take the layup then, and I'll say Melville and Flin Flon because I think that is I think that is the game.
Yeah,
rightfully so. I think you have the Flin Flon Bombers who are 12-0-1, 25 points out of a possible 26. Melville's got a 7-2 record, 14 points out of 18, and again, we have mentioned it time and time again. Last week that the next 5 games were going to be we were going to really see who these Melville Millionaires are, and they have, through 2 of them, they've really passed with flying colors. I'm just curious to see how they're going to adjust going to the north, because it is an adjustment going to those smaller rinks and playing in those different atmospheres, but the fact that they have Doug Johnson behind the bench, who's very experienced in those rinks, I think that's going to go a long way for them. But it'll be an interesting test because obviously you have the Flin Flon Bombers who have scored 74 goals in 13 games. And then, Jesus, right. But then you have a Melville Millionaires team who is so good defensively, and their goaltending's been so good. They've only allowed 22 goals in 9 games. I'm curious to see how those 2 teams.
Unstoppable object, immovable, or no, unstoppable force, immovable object type stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah.
That makes for a very interesting contrast in styles. And I think that's the one that I'm really keeping my eye on. Obviously, they played twice, Friday, Saturday. But the Friday one's the first one I'm really keeping my eye on because both teams played on Tuesday, and after those wins, I'm sure both coaches were already gearing up and getting ready for it because it's a big test for both those clubs. So it should be a doozy. But of course, there are 12 games in the SJHL this weekend. So for you to stay up to date with everything in the SJHL, be sure to like us on social media, whether it be like us on Facebook, follow us on. I almost said it. X.
Twitter.
Formerly known as Twitter. X. Follow us on X. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on TikTok. I got to say, you know what's one thing that's really confusing? Yes, X is here for Twitter now. But the X logo on your phone and the TikTok logo are so similar.
Oh, yeah.
It really is. So
I have them very separated, so that's...
But when the notifications pop up, they're very similar.
Yeah,
anyways,
they do.
Like us on all those. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We have talked about how easy it is. It is. Literally, just log in with your Gmail. And then all you got to do is hit the subscribe button. It is free. That's how you'll know when SJHL videos go live. Our shows, our highlights, features, you name it. And it's an exciting time in the SJHL because, just in 2.5 weeks, we got the SJHL Showcase coming up. There's going to be a lot of content coming out of that. And I'm excited for it this year, Clark. Do you know why?
There's so many reasons. How can we narrow it down to one thing?
That was probably the best way you could.
Because I'm coming?
No, I was going to say I'm actually going to get some help.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm
coming this year.
So Clark's going to be at the showcase, so we'll actually be able to produce some more content, and it'll be a lot of fun.
All hands on deck for our IKS media crew coming to Warman, so I'm excited. I haven't been to Warman in a while.
Oh yeah, it's changed.
So I'm excited.
It's changed a lot since you and I went with the Bruins in 2016.
Yeah.
That's for sure. But also, obviously, so subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've surpassed 1,000 subscribers. I know I've said that a few times in the last.
It's in a rearview mirror
but
now.
We're
waving at it.
It is. But it wouldn't be possible without you, the viewer or the listener. And of course, if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, I think you can. I don't know how it works. Subscribe on the podcast, follow. I don't know.
On Spotify, I think you follow certain accounts, and I think that's how you do it.
Okay. Well, you can follow us for the audio versions as well. Say you're driving on our beautiful Saskatchewan highways, where the snow removal crews are doing an excellent job to start this year.
Keep it up.
You know what? Quick side story. It was my drive to Humboldt and back for the Humboldt S-Man game was like it was summer. It was unbelievable how good the roads were. So shout out to the crews. And
clean as a whistle.
Yeah, very clean. And of course, we have to give a big thank you to all of our great sponsors here at the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. First and foremost, we got to say a big shout out to UPL. They're our presenting sponsor for SJHL Insider, SJHL Weekly, all the SJHL programming and shows. But of course, there's a lot of other great sponsors: Borgo, Cantera Seeds, Capital Automall, Great Western Nutrient, RBC, Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, Sask Lotteries, Tourism Saskatchewan, UPL, Sask Energy, SGU, SGI. Why I put the two acronyms together, that's a bad mistake. I've noticed that every time I've said the sponsor list. I shouldn't put the SGU and SGI together because I kind of makes it sound like two the same business. But a big shout out to all of our great sponsors here at the SJHL. Without them, these shows would not be possible. Clark, your final thoughts before we wrap things up?
You know what? I usually kind of just say I'm excited for all the games, but it does start tonight. And one thing I will say is that the spotlight is on the return of Kean Bell, and the Weyburn Red Wings are looking to shut them down. Because if you remember, they played each other in the playoffs.
They sure did.
And I think there's maybe some memories there. So I'm going to say this is going to be actually a really good game to have the spotlight tonight.
And the first games since they played each other in the playoffs last year, too. So
I think this is a great way to kick off the weekend. I'm going to tune in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a great way to, kick off the rest of the week.
Yeah.
Really, obviously, with it, technically today's not the weekend.
That's fair. You're right.
But I 100% agree what you're saying. You know what's one thing I was saying to our good friend Rory McGoran last night after the Kean Bell news? That Marty Martinson first goal call of Kean Bell.
Oh. Yeah, we're cutting it for something. We're gonna watch that back.
Clip that. It's a shame they're not at home this weekend.
Yeah,
but
I mean he's gonna be probably facing Daz and Mitchell tonight, so it'll be a tall task. But it's Kean Bell. I won't put anything past him at this point. Yeah, I've seen too much.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Regardless, it is going to be a great week in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. Follow us on socials. Get your Flow Hockey subscription today if you don't have it, and you can watch all the SJHL action. But I would say most importantly, though, while there's not much snow on the ground right now, get out to your local rinks. Check out the action before the weather gets too cold. Get out to see your local team. Great hockey. The parity's there. any team can beat any team on any given night. It's been a great start to the 2023-2024 season, and it's only going to continue. 12 games this weekend on the agenda, plus one tonight between the Battlefords North Stars and the Weyburn Red Wings. Should be a great weekend of hockey for Clark Monroe. My name's Jeromy Corrigan. Thanks for tuning in to an all-new episode of SJHL Insider, and enjoy the games this weekend, everyone.